and welcome to another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for enlightenment, education, and elevation. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. And I want to take the time out right now to thank each and every one of you who decided to give me a little bit of your time today, because we know that that is the one commodity that can never be replaced. So we hope in exchange we give you an equal or greater payment for your time. Before we go further, I'd like to thank God Almighty for allowing me to do this again each and every day. Without him, I am nothing, but with him, nothing can stop me. I also want to thank my wife, who stands by my side, strong as a brick house. I'd like to thank my mother, the greatest mother that God could give anybody on God's green earth. My children, who are the foundation of my life and my happiness. I want to thank each and every one of them. And I got to give a special shout out to my son. My son, Khalif. Khalif is responsible for the intros, the outros. He's responsible for the what you see on the screen now. He's responsible for the thumbnails. I give him my ideas and he put them up there. So I have to give shout out to my son, Khalif, because without him, I would not be able to do the show as impactful as I'm trying to do it. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Now I'm waiting for Carl to hit me to get in the booth or whatever. Let me hit him up real quick, and then and as we wait for him, we'll go into some news. Okay, so give me a second, because Carl hit me up yesterday. Hold on 1 second, everybody. He asked me, have I sent the link? Yeah, I sent the link. Hold on 1 second, everybody. Let me try to send it again to him. All right, give me 1 sec. See, that's what I'm telling you. Sometimes the links, I send them to Rashid, I send them to other people, and they'll say they don't get the links. And I'll send it to emails, Twitter accounts, phones, and everything. So hold on 1 second. Let me send this to Carl real quick. Right, here it is again. It is again. He said he doesn't have the link yet. So I'm sending it to him now again. All right. So we'll wait for Carl to join us, but until he joins us, let us get into the news today. I was reading a few things. Well, first of all, let's go into something real quick as we wait for Carl to join us. Now, I want you to understand that we're watching the U.S. empire implode, right? As Congress and Victoria Nuland insults your intelligence, constantly begging for more taxpayers' money to wage aggressive wars of imperialism around the world, and as Joe Biden demands that Congress pass a $60+ billion package on top of all of the other packages that they've allotted, the United States infrastructure is in disrepair. It is collapsing, just like you see the cargo ship crash into the bridge, right? Listen to me good. I don't think you know the ramifications of this. The entire world watches America. And for them to look at the state that America has fallen into, this is why they're taking their lot with the global South. This is why they're choosing sides with Russia, BRICS, China, Iran. That America is in a downward spiral, and her leaders can't see through the fog because her leaders are inept. They're arrogant. They're greedy. They're bloodthirsty. And they are more concerned about expanding American imperial power than they are about the so-called citizens that they are supposed to govern and lead to prosperity and to a better life. Right? This is the War Report, and we're waiting for Carl Zha to join us on the platform. Oh, he says, okay, he'll be here in a second. Okay? He'll be here in a second. So think about that. And I'd like to thank everybody who's joining us. I know that they cut us off on locals because I'm seeing it here. A pink thing popped up. For those of you on Twitch, Twitter, the Red Pill Journals, the Red Pill Diaries, Odyssey, Local, and Rumble. Thank you all for joining us again on this platform. I really, really appreciate it, okay? So I want you to think about the level of contempt, the $61 billion bill that they're having hissy fits over could eradicate homelessness and poverty in the United States. Now, I want you to think about the ramifications. If that is not a national security issue, tell me what is. If you eradicate poverty and homelessness, guess what happens? You then can focus on education. And education is the basis for a productive, progressive society. And if you have educated people, they become civilized, right? And they can think outside the box and bring in new technologies that bring in new jobs that promote the growth of the economy and the growth of society. But when you focus on war, right, your society starts to devolve and the cohesion falls apart, right? This is where we are. A nation that is almost 700 trillion. I'm going to say that again. Almost $700 trillion in real debt. Because remember, I played a clip for you from an economic professor that was talking 10 years ago or 12 years ago about America actually being in debt $222 trillion. And the math, as we multiply it, would lead us to upwards of 700 trillion. This does not include the acknowledged 34 trillion. This does not include the debt or the bond market, right? And yet they're borrowing from Paul to pay Peter. And they're doing it with the stick-up kids. I'm going to go on this block and I'm going to steal from this person and I'm going to pay a little bit to this person. And when they get it tomorrow, as they're walking down the street, I'm going to stick him up and go put it back in his pocket. How long do you think that can last? How long? If we use common sense, how long do you think actions and policies of that sort can be beneficial and prosperous and last for the United States? I got my guy in the building right now. I got to bring my guy on right out without further delay. This is my friend, my brother, Carl Zha. How's it going today, Carl?
Hi, Rashid. Good morning. How are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Hey, you're looking very distinguished with your glasses on today.
I scratched my eyes somehow, so I can't wear contacts anymore. I just gotta, I had my wife pick out those glasses for me. She knows better fashion than I do. So,
so Carl, we're looking at this thing that's going on in Russia. Let's address that before we go into things like the Middle East and China, because we gotta address that 800-pound gorilla in the Asia Pacific. But I hear the rumblings of ISIS and ISIS-K and all of this stuff, and everybody with common sense know that ISIS is a product of U.S., British, and Israeli special services. Why is that part constantly being left out of the discussion when they talk about a possible attack on the concert hall in Russia?
you know, it's funny because all the U.S. Government agencies and U.S. media are almost gloating that ISIS attacked Russia, and all of them. And guess what? U.S. Government officials stand. You know, they don't know who did Nord Stream attack, but they just knew it's ISIS that attacked Moscow, and they are very adamant it was ISIS because, you know, U.S. intelligence could verify. U.S. intelligence, they didn't. How come they didn't know about 9/11 or Nord Stream, right? But they know about ISIS. And if you look at the target of ISIS right now, you know, ISIS attacked just since October, since Israel started to commit genocide. Well, I mean, not started. Israel has always been committing genocide in Palestine, but since Israel started the genocide in Gaza, what has ISIS done? ISIS attacked Iran, ISIS attacked Russia, and ISIS is attacking China. Oh, just coincidence, just complete coincidence that all the official enemies of the United States, there's a Vice article actually talking about the ISIS Khorasan, about how now their main focus is China. It's like, okay, and just recently there was another attack on the Chinese engineers working on
I was going to bring it up.
Yeah, on the Belt and Road project in Pakistan. So it's just too much of a coincidence that now all the official enemy of the United States is on the target list of ISIS. I mean, they're not beating the Western proxy allegation. And, all these open source intelligence, bro, on Twitter, they're probably paid by CIA anyway. They're all like, "Oh, we gotta believe in ISIS. If ISIS said they did it, then it's ISIS. People, why don't you believe ISIS?" Look, man. I mean, sure. I mean, I can believe that ISIS did it, but who are their funders? Who provide them with intelligence? And you look at the people who are arrested by the Russian special forces, the suspect in the Moscow concert hall attack. These guys, they said on camera they got paid. They got contacted. They got recruited through Telegram, and they got paid. These guys are not your regular like ISIS recruits. These like ISIS people, they normally don't allow them to be captured. They'll off themselves first, and they do it for ideology. They're not going to say, "Oh, I did it for money. I did it for $5,000." I mean, that's what the guy said on camera. I mean, it's a good thing that the RT, they broadcasted live when the guy was captured, rather wait for a couple of days when he's like all dressed up, clean shaven, appear in court, and then people will say, "Oh, he was like the Russians must did something to him." But the guy was right after he was captured. He was being interrogated, and he said, "I got paid, equivalent of $5,000." And normal ISIS people don't do that. This is and guess where they're trying to flee to? They're trying to flee to Ukraine. They got caught on the Ukrainian border near Bryansk. So yeah, man. I mean, nobody in Russia, China, or Iran believes that the U.S. is not involved. Okay? It's the onus is on the U.S. government to prove that they're. I mean, let's look at all the evidences. The U.S. knew about the attack beforehand. The U.S. embassy issued a warning on March 7th, published on their website, warning American citizens to stay away specifically from concert hall and malls. And then right after the attack, the National Security Council spokeswoman talked to NBC News and said, "Oh, the U.S. intelligence, we had prior intelligence about a possible terrorist attack, and this is why we put up that warning on the website, and we also warned the Russian authorities." Like, I mean, would be a perfect opportunity for them to come out and say, "Okay, this is why we know about this attack. This is what we know about the attacks." I mean, some of the people say, "Oh, but they don't want to compromise, how they gather intelligence." I mean, it's very easy not to give up too much details, but just come out and say, "Okay, we have been monitoring this ISIS group. We got their, we saw something on the Telegram or something." Like right now, everything looks like it was done in a way to provide a cover of deniable
plausible
deniability. Exactly.
I was listening to Maria Zakharova, the spokeswoman for the foreign ministry of the Russian Federation, and she gave a good about an hour and some interview after doing like 3 hours straight of answering questions. And she was saying that the U.S. keeps saying that they passed along intelligence to the United States, but they actually didn't. She said that they passed along certain vague things to third parties, which third parties told the Russian Federation. And it was so vague that you couldn't make heads or tails of it. And she said that if the United States truly believed that it was ISIS, then hand over the intelligence that would prove that. And they have refused to so far. And she believes that because the U.S. and the UK and NATO forces had a hand in it. And that's and pretty much that's what she was saying. And I want to bring something. I was playing some clips yesterday on my show about the creation of ISIS. You know, YouTube and all of these other people, they scrub the internet of this stuff, right? So I want to play this 56-second clip about ISIL. I played it yesterday. It's about ISIS or ISIL or ISIS-K or whatever they were. Because you notice every time the United States use up the utility of a terror group, out the blue, another one pops up and the United States knows everything about them. So I just want you to listen to what this guy, who is a Mossad agent who works hand in hand with the CIA, has to say about ISIS.
Against the state of Israel, political plots and others.
You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model.
So, Carl, I saw you laughing behind the scene. You take that football and run with it.
I mean, look, man, what have ISIS done since October last year? They came out to criticize Hamas. They say Hamas is too focused on national liberation issues. This is and look at the juncture, the timing of the attack. The attack happened immediately after Putin's re-election, when he just won an overwhelming popular mandate to prosecute the special military operation in Ukraine. At the same time, when to every clear observers, Russia is clearly winning the Ukrainian war, and the West and the NATO alliance couldn't do anything about it. And then you look at the reactions in U.S., both by the U.S. government and all the mainstream media. They're all gloating. They're gloating that Russia got attacked, and and guess what they were saying? They were saying, "Oh, this shows that Putin could not provide security for Russia." I mean, it almost seems like the attack, the intent of the attack is to show Russians, to prove that somehow how Putin is not properly protecting Russians, and to direct the attention of the world away from, again, Israeli atrocity in Palestine, away from the U.S. impotence in the Red Sea, when the U.S. admiral was quoted that U.S. Navy is fighting our largest battle since World War II, and they're losing to the Houthis, to Ansar Allah. They made Houthis a major world naval power in the 21st century, because U.S. Navy, with all its budget, is powerless to stop the blockade. And this is the point where all these NATO hawks, all these Washington spooks are looking for a so-called win against Russia, and then this concert hall attack happens. It's just like little too convenient. I mean, if it smells like the three-letter agencies and walks like the three-letter agencies, I'm gonna tend to believe that three-letter agency is behind it.
Do you believe that everybody is talking over and making it appear as if it's ISIS because the ramifications of finding out that it was America and Britain would force Russia's hand to actually attack them? I know that, and before you answer that, I know when I was doing my live last night, I got some information before that, and I was telling the people that Russia struck some decision-making centers. I know everybody was talking about they struck these the power plants, but the information that was being fed to me was that they hit NATO bases in Ukraine and they took out high officials. And today we get it that a Polish general was killed in a bunker, and NATO is saying that he died in the war zone from natural causes. I mean, well, they're not lying, because if he's a general and he's at war and gets killed in war, that is natural causes for him. But
he died of natural causes when the building collapsed on him.
So what do you think? Do you think they're trying to mask it because of the ramifications? Because this could mean that Russia would have to strike the perpetrators, which are nation states.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at what Ukraine did right after the attack. You know, first of all, it's a gloating, and then they're trying to blame it on a Russian false flag, because this is the same thing that happened during the Chechen War. For people who have like longer memory spans, there was during the Chechen War in the early 2000s, there was another Moscow concert hall attack carried out by the Chechen separatists at the time when Washington and NATO were fully backing the Chechen separatists in Chechnya. But guess what? The concert hall attack did not stop the Russian victory in Chechnya, and similarly, it won't stop the Russian victory in Ukraine. But what did the Ukraine do right after the attack? They launched a barrage of missile attack against Crimea, and you know I don't even believe there's still like Ukraine had that kind of missile capability at this point. There's very likely that those missiles and as well as the target intelligence were provided by the West, by US and the NATO alliance. And it seems very much to me a coordinated attack. They chose this opportune time right when Russia is gripped by this tragedy in Moscow, and they decide for this opportunity to launch attack. And we know the special forces are embedded in the war zone among the Ukrainian forces. We know for a while, you know, Elon Musk's Starlink was providing the logistics for communication for Ukraine, and you know all these U.S. military, NATO intelligence, they're all there. They're all in the forefront, either observing or actively assisting. You know, they already trained the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military was NATO trained. Let's not forget that. So this is this at the same time when Macron claimed that he will send French troops. He said that the France is going to fully back Ukraine. This guy is crazy. I mean, when was the last time France fought a war with Russia? Napoleon marched to Moscow. What happened to that? What happened to Napoleon's Grand Army? That was the end of Napoleon. That was the end of France as a great power. And I don't know what Macron is thinking anymore, because like you know, France today is you know, when he says European should not be vassal to the United States, he get criticized in Europe. I mean, this is the kind of the environment we're in right now. This is but I honestly, no matter what kind of noise they make, it doesn't change the fundamental facts on the ground. Europe, US, they don't have the industrial capacity to prosecute the war in Ukraine. Like now Israel is complaining that US is not supplying enough 155 millimeter shells to Israel. I mean, like because they just, this all happened because, you know, the US military intelligence complex decided, you know what, there's no profit in making artillery shells. We make more money by getting this boondoggle project like F-35, you know, where there's much more grip for all the grease all around. So they intentionally phase out the artillery production, and now they can't catch up to the Russian production and the North Korean production of the artillery shells. And let's face it, in a land war, artillery is still king. except they upgraded. Now the artillery have linked up with drones, so they can do precision strikes everywhere in the battlefield. This is where whatever the terrorist attack, it's not going to change the equation. You know, it's not going to change the power balance. The Russians are still going to demolish the Ukrainian air forces in Ukraine, and there's not much the West could do about it. So they're kind of desperate. They're desperate for a win, and you know, so far, you know, Russia has been quite rational on concentrating just on Ukraine, not getting direct confrontation with the West, because they are doing they're carrying out a methodical grounding down of the resources that NATO is pouring into Ukraine. So this is the exact opposite of what John McCain and Lindsey Graham had wanted to happen, because Lindsey Graham said, this is great because it's the Ukrainian that's fighting the Russians. They're doing the fighting for us, you know, because they're proxies. And it's better that we fight Russia in Ukraine than we have to fight them head on. But Ukrainian manpower is being depleted. Ukrainian battlefront is collapsing, and there's nothing they could do. And you know, everybody know that U.S. actually do not want to be directly involved. You know, when was the last time U.S. actually won a war? You know, like people keep on putting out all these U.S. military propaganda like this. We're the greatest force on earth. Well, you're not even winning against Yemen. What are we kidding here? You think you can take on Russia and China? That's a joke.
You know, Carl, sometimes I sit back and I think about the leadership of America, and I'm wondering, are they on angel dust or PCP, something? Because it seems like what is evident to everybody else is not evident to them, and these people being in the higher echelons of power should know better and should even have a better range of options, but they always choose the options which are detrimental to their own national security. I mean, is that insanity or what?
I think the problem is they start to believe in their own propaganda. You know, they produce so much propaganda to propagandize the American population. But at the end of the day, the U.S. politicians and the CIA case officers, they still come from the U.S. general population. You know, and first of all, there's already a beltway bubble which shielded them from reality of average Americans. And then when your only source of information is the propaganda produced by your own, you have a very warped view of the world. I mean, the ones that do understand what's going on, guess what? They're not in power. they're being pushed out of the power, and instead we have people like, you know, what is a Biden presidency at this point? This guy is little more than a zombie. I mean, he can't even form coherent sentences, and his handlers behind the scene, like Jake Sullivan and stuff, they have been proved complete disaster. You know, if you think your goal is imperial U.S. domination over the world, I mean, then it's a complete disaster. I mean, a lot of the U.S. defeat is not necessarily because the other side is overwhelming. It's self-inflicted pain.
Yep.
And this is and our ruling elite, U.S. ruling elite, is completely delusional about the reality of the world. That's why they keep on doing this, taking these L's, because they don't know how the world works anymore.
Do you believe that they like you said, they have drunk their own Kool-Aid, propaganda Kool-Aid? Do you believe that at this moment in time, with the economy in such a bad situation, with the political situation bad, with the social situation close to explosion at home, and the infrastructure situation that it is just like less than a third world nation almost now, do you believe that the leaders have the capacity to think outside of war fighting and to try to make more friends than enemies so that they can try to do some type of repair to the republic before it implodes.
Rashid, when you are hammer, everything looks like a nail. I mean, these guys are so embedded in the military-industrial complex. They can't see the forest for the trees. The only thing they believe in is zero-sum competition. I mean, so what rationales was to carry on the kind of the security and geopolitical competition with Russia after the Cold War, after the collapse of the Soviet Union? There's none. I mean, the only reason that kept that going is because NATO bureaucracy that got to keep its grip down. It's got to justify its own existence. I mean, China is not looking for a confrontation with U.S. China was perfectly happy to trade with everybody. The current U.S.-China tension is wholly brought about by the action of United States government because they fully believe and they're fully committed to the full spectrum dominance. So they're actually sabotaging themselves in the process, especially when they still rely on supply chains in China to even fulfill the basic needs of the U.S. military, and they think they can go challenge China in South China Sea or Taiwan or something. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and I think this is what the problem is when the empire is on the decline, and when they see the global hegemony is slipping out their fingers, they get desperate. And this is why they're clutching the last straws right now by engaging essentially a three-front war across the world, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in Taiwan, and but you know what? The only thing that U.S. does well nowadays is propaganda, because U.S. have invented marketing, right? We're very good at marketing. That's where U.S. leads Russia by far. Like Putin said during his Tucker Carlson interviews, like, yeah, we don't try to compete with the U.S. propaganda war because they're too good at it, right? We're just gonna concentrate on winning the war on the ground. But at the end of the day, the swords spoke louder than words. I mean, that's just how it works. Russia and China have the raw power, the raw industrial power, and they have more alliances all across the world. They're being cheered on by the global South country right now. I mean, so many people are glad finally Russia is taking on the Western alliance. It's like, yeah, give it to them, Putin.
Carl, going back to something you said about how they get desperate and they're always making mistakes. I'm thinking about something about a policy that I just saw, a policy initiative by congressmen a few days ago. And they were talking about sanctioning. I want you to see how detrimental this is to the United States. And they think that they're going to hurt Russia by this. Russia offers the cheapest nuclear fuel and it's high quality nuclear fuel. So America saves money by buying the fuel. And it also is able to power 25 to 30% of all U.S. homes with this nuclear fuel. And the United States is talking about sanctioning uranium that they use for the power plant from Russia. What in the world? I mean, this is unreal.
So for the nuclear fuels, there's two major sources in the world. One deposit is in Russia. The other is in Africa. Well, guess what? They're losing both right now. The African countries are getting tired of leeches like France sucking them dry. So they're kicking out France out of the Sahel region of Africa. And where's West is gonna turn? What they're gonna wrong? I mean, the Western economy, unless they figure out a way to hook it up to like copium. If they could run on copium, then yes. But right now, yeah. Here we are, Richie.
So I also, before we transition to what's going on in the Middle East and Asia, isn't it ironic that right before the bombing took place in Russia, former President Barack Obama was seen coming out of 10 Downing Street in the UK. I mean, what was that about? Or what? Hypothesize, what do you think that was about?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how relevant is Obama at this point because Obama was trotted out in 2008 as like the Wall Street candidate with but he's a Wall Street mascot, right? He's a mascot of Wall Street, but people, but with his rhetoric of change, people got completely misled. And if you look at the people who are in power in the Biden administration, people like the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, these are the people that was poised to take power back when in 2008 with the Hillary Clinton presidency. That never happened, and later in 2020, right? And but now they're using the zombie presidency of Biden. It's basically all these previous Hillary cronies, are in power, and they're the ones that's actually running the show behind the scenes. I don't know how much pull Obama has. I mean, I think the most important asset of Obama is he's a facade. He's a urbane face of the U.S. empire. I mean that even if he is doing some kind of wheeling and dealing behind the scenes for US and UK, what can UK do? What the hell is UK, man? UK is like a poodle to US. How much can UK really help US in this front? I don't see it. I just don't see that happening. Like the Victor Gao said, UK is not a competition or rival to China. China is a fact. It's a mega trend for UK to live with and get along with. You guys are no competition. China leads in AI. China leads in technology. Where the hell is UK? UK is nowhere to be seen. So I mean, they can strategize all they want. At the end of the day, the wars are won by material conditions on the ground, and that's simply lacking in the West.
Well, speaking of the UK, there's an article out on the on RT.com, and this is the headline, Carl. British Army would only last 2 months against Russia. Now that's wishful thinking, because they wouldn't. What is it? It's 70-some thousand people in the British Armed Forces. They can't fill up a stadium, and this is what the article states. The military lacks ammo and equipment, the deputy chief of the defense staff has told MPs. The British Armed Forces are not prepared for a potential confrontation with an adversary such as Russia, the deputy chief of the UK defense staff, Lieutenant General Robert Megawan, told a parliamentary defense committee on Tuesday. The military severely lacks the resources, particularly ammunition, for any such conflict, he believes. Now, I won't even go any further with that. Okay, if you won't last 2 months with Russia because of Russia's military industrial base, how long do you think you can last fighting a war with China with a huge, unmatched military industrial base?
I mean, China just stopped shipping. China can just stop shipping goods to UK, and the thing is, UK's Britain's strength has always been its navy rather than its army, and look at the state of Royal Navy right now. Their flagship HMS Elizabeth was in port for repair, and then it caught fire, and they're not ready. These are not serious people, and then you have right after the Obama visit, David Cameron, the U.S. Foreign Secretary or the Foreign Minister, came out and said, "We are taking action against China. We are finally going to sanction China for all these spy activity they're doing in Britain." Again, it's like, who the hell do you think you are? You're not a You're not an imperial. You're not the great power anymore. You hasn't been since 1950 Suez Canal crisis. You're acting like you actually matters. I mean, the UK, the UK politicians are jokes, and they're talking about we're defending our democracy. What democracy are you talking about? David Cameron, who elected you, or who elected your boss, Sunak? You know, who elected him as a prime minister, and who elected you as foreign minister? Did the British people elect you? How do you call that democracy then? This is bullshit.
Right. Well, Carl, look at this. There's an article out on tomshardware.com. And to show you, to cut through the U.S. propaganda on the Chinese, and we're going to cover a lot of things, but this is what the title of the article is. China filed 25% more patents than the U.S. in 2023. Heavily sanctioned Huawei led all companies worldwide despite bans. Now, think about that. America tried to stick it to Huawei, and Huawei bounces back and leads the world in patents. Now, if China has led the world in the issuing of patents, how can they be stealing technology from the West when they are the ones that are the leaders of the patents that are, that are given to nations in their scientific breakthrough?
Rashid, the U.S. doesn't have 5G because Chinese stole it. Okay, because China has stolen the 5G technology. That's why U.S. doesn't have 5G. And this is China graduate millions of engineer every year. You know, just go look up the statistics from last year. There's no competition. There's no competition from U.S. Why do they think they have a chance to keep China down? 1/5 of the humanity, 1 in every 5 person on Earth is Chinese, and why can China enjoy better living conditions? You know, when China, even if the Chinese capita per GDP reaches 25% of U.S. in nominal dollar terms, that means Chinese economy is already bigger than United States. But the Chinese are not going to stop right there. I mean, like when Gina Raimondo says U.S. will take whatever it takes to stop China's progress, this is insane. This is how do you plan to do that? This is they still think they can literally just dictate to the world, but United States doesn't have the resources. In fact, the research and development in U.S. depends on foreign talents. It depends on those Chinese students coming into the U.S. university to take up this research and development roles. They don't, most of I went through the U.S. University system myself. I mean, people just don't. The people who go to engineering are like either Chinese or Indians, exchange students. They're not the people are now going to lucrative careers like be a TikTok influencer, be a YouTuber.
So Carl, on our screen here, we see that this says China leads the world in hypersonic technology. And this is from Bloomberg. This is not from some fringe Eastern or Global South publication. This is actually from Bloomberg's Bloomberg.com. This in itself is an admission, because think about the intricacies in hypersonic technology. The United States just tested one that they claimed was a success, but they didn't tell you that it did not meet all of the parameters that they were looking for. So it's still in testing phase, but China has working hypersonic technology. How can they be still in technology and they lead in patents and they lead in hypersonic technology?
I think a lot of people, their mental picture of China is literally stuck in the last century. They still think of China in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. They don't realize China has moved into 21st century a long time ago, and this is why when Americans do set foot in China. Recently, I saw a video of an American who traveled back to China after 5 years, and he was shocked. He was shocked, and he admitted that in many ways, China already is ahead of United States in terms of in terms of not only living condition, but in terms of technology, adoption of technology, mobile payments, and it's just a nice country to live in. And he said it saddened me to admit, but U.S. in the last 5 years has gone in the opposite direction. I mean, for the people who are familiar with both countries, that's just obvious. This has been a fact for a while right now. But with politicians like Joe Biden and Pelosi, do you think these guys really know what's going on in the world? Pelosi can be very good at stock picking, but I don't think she has bandwidth for anything else right now. I mean, she got so good at investing, she doesn't have time to devote to other arenas of expertise.
Oh my God. Oh, Carl. I tell you what, Carl, you know you can keep it laughing. This question is for you, Carl. I mean, this statement is for you. You can answer that.
I mean, let's just face it. Both Russia and China leads United States in the hypersonic missiles technology. Well, I think Russia at some point they still lead China in like things like jet engines, but that's already changing because China is catching up. One of the things with Russia is they inherited a lot of the advanced infrastructure from the former Soviet Union, but after the Soviet collapse, a lot of the Soviet infrastructure, even including the military-industrial complex infrastructure, were kind of left crumbling. So Russia in the last 10 years was trying to just repairing the damage that occurred after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Russia is still making steady progress, but they got hampered. They got hampered in that, especially in the last decade of 1990s when Yeltsin was in power. I mean, that's when the whole Soviet legacy of industrial production got hollowed out, and all the equipment were sold abroad. So in the meantime, what happened in China since 1980s, there was steady progress. So I think Russia and China, in terms of missile technologies, they're about they're on par right now. But they're both much ahead of U.S. Much more ahead of U.S.
And I was as you were talking, I was looking at something to throw in with you. It says that China has nearly 5 million graduates in engineering, surpassing India or any other nation. And it says that Russia has the highest number of engineers in the world, but China has the highest graduate. So year in and year out, they're turning over engineers like none other. So isn't it ironic that the two leaders of the BRICS are building their engineer corps while America is trying to wage war and using more and more debt to do that, which will upend her rule because debt is unsustainable.
Yeah, I mean, Soviet Union had always been very good at putting investment into education. I mean, after the Cold War, U.S. actually benefited from the influx of former Soviet educated engineers who are now seeking jobs in the West. I knew this because I work in the software industry. My colleagues are either from former Soviet Union, from China, or from India. I mean, that's just a fact. But right now, with the internal conditions in Russia improving, the new generations of Russian trained engineers are not leaving like their previous generations. They're staying in their country and developing their country. And Russia and China has they have synergy because their economy is complementary. There is much less dependency on the West. Well, there's little dependency on the West in Russia right now because it got cut off. So now the rest of the world is powering forward while U.S. is trying to build a wall around itself and its little vassal states in Europe. So what I see will happen in the future is, technologically, the BRICS countries, leading by Russia and China, will continue forward, while the West will stagnate and fall behind. And we already seen that in a lot of arenas. Like sustainable energy development. China leads in solar, wind power, hydro production. China leads in EV production. China leads in robotics. Now China is providing stiff competition to the Japanese robotic companies, and they're proving stiff competition for German automakers. And I don't even know what U.S. have to compete with at this point.
I was also looking down in the same article, and it says that China and India graduate 12 times more engineers than the United States. And on top of it, let us not forget that China has set up some academies across Africa to promote engineering. So let us not forget that while we're talking about this. What say you on this matter?
Yeah, I mean, United States is lucky in that India hasn't completely gotten its house in order. So the Indian trained engineers continually come to U.S. to power the U.S. multinationals, and that's one of the things that's sustaining the U.S. economy right now. All these foreign talents coming to U.S. Formerly it's Indian Chinese, but now the U.S. government is putting the screws on all the Chinese engineers and researchers. So China is developing. So all, the Chinese engineers, they have better options. They have better options at home. Whereas the Indian engineers at this point are still choosing to come to U.S. because they can have a better lifestyle. So that's what's keeping U.S. still keeping the U.S. going right now. I mean, U.S. still lead in certain area of technology like ChatGPT, but this again is kind of the difference between U.S. and focus of U.S. and Chinese economy, because U.S. is.
So there was a slowdown. I'm sorry, Carl. Finish.
Okay, so U.S. is focused.
No, I was saying finish your statement. We lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. Where did you lose me? I can maybe reinstate what I said.
The U.S. is focused. Go ahead. The U.S. is focused, and then I lost you.
Yeah. There's a difference between U.S. and China. U.S. is more focused on the service sector right now. This is why U.S. still have an edge in stuff like ChatGPT, because U.S. is very good at producing word salad. They're very good at producing marketing, ads, advertisement, and this is why ChatGPT has a lot of data pool to work with, and also plus the English language is still a dominant trading language around the world, so that they have that slight advantage over China. Whereas you see where China leads, they're leading in robotics, in automated manufacturing, like all the things that produce stuff, because that's what China excels in. China excels in making hard concrete object, whereas the U.S. is excelling in talking. So this is why when it comes to AI, you see the clear differentiation. U.S. leads in ChatGPT, and China leading in robotics and automated manufacturing. I mean, people have such outdated thinking about China that they think China is still like sweatshop, slave labor that's producing cheap shoes for U.S. Just go to like any car factory in China. All the car factory floors are automated. They have like machines and robots making the cars. Whereas in U.S., you still see like people physically bolting the door on the car. So this is like, and they think that somehow China is still like behind US. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just, again, there's a lot of ignorance in US that's been sustained by the constant stream of propaganda. So that's one area U.S. clear lead. The propaganda production, the copium production is off the charts.
I also noticed recently that tensions had started to build in the South China Sea with the Philippines and China. The United States stoking tensions between South Korea and North Korea. The United States is stoking tensions with China in its province of Chinese Taipei. For those of you who don't know, Chinese Taipei is Taiwan. And now they're involved in the dispute between the Chinese and India. And this is what was said openly a few days ago. So I'm going to read this. This is from CNBC News. And it says, China slams the U.S. for interfering in the I can't pronounce it. Pradesh border dispute.
Yeah.
Yes, border dispute with India, and it says China slammed the United States for interfering. Now it says it is the latest in an escalating dispute between neighboring India and China. On Wednesday, the United States rejected Beijing's unilateral attempts to advance its territorial claims, weighing in on a spat between New Delhi and Beijing after Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated a tunnel in the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, that is what the West doesn't tell the audience is that is a leftover grievance between the two nations from colonial times of Britain running India and trying to subjugate China and the rest of Asia to the imperial will of Britain. What do you say on this, and how can you inform people of what is actually going on? Because this could lead to war, because India wants to be accepted by the Western world as equals when they will never accept them, and they will try to use whatever advantage that the U.S. gives them against China, even though they claim to be part of the BRICS. What is your take on this?
Okay, so I will address South China Sea and Taiwan first before addressing China and India. So South China Sea, what the U.S. media is not telling you, right now it's a maritime dispute. It's basically a dispute about EEZs, exclusive economic zones between the Philippines and China in South China Sea, and so U.S. do have Blinken went to the Philippines and he said the U.S. have an ironclad commitment to U.S.-Philippine mutual defense treaty, and he claims the State Department now claims a U.S.-Philippine defense treaty covers South China Sea, which is itself is a provocation because when the U.S. and Philippines signed the defense treaty in 1951, when the Philippines just became independent, it has a very clear delineation of what Philippine is. It defines the Filipino territory as the one that U.S. inherited from Spain when it defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War, and that did not include South China Sea. And so now U.S. is trying to expand that definition to cover the dispute in the South China Sea, of course, to confront China. Now, what U.S. mainstream media is not telling you, but which is actually being reported in the Philippines, is that China. So the current hotspot in the South China Sea is this called the second Thomas Shoal in English. It's this set of reefs that would be submerged under the high tide. So the thing with reefs is under the UN law of the sea, UNCLOS, no countries can claim reef as like submissible features as like territory, but they can be included in their special economic zones. And what happened was the dispute dates back to before the Philippines was founded, because after World War II, the Republic of China back then, they drew a 11 dash line around South China Sea, and they sent the U.S. supply warship to enforce their claims. At this time when Chiang Kai-shek was U.S. proxy, so U.S. was perfectly fine with that. U.S. was perfectly fine with Republic of China claiming all the South China Sea features after the Japanese surrender. But then the Chinese Civil War happened. And during the Chinese Civil War, when U.S. saw that communists was winning, so they decided to exclude China, both sides of China, both the communist side and the KMT side, from attending the Treaty of San Francisco in 1951 to resolve all the claims dating from the Japanese surrender. So they explicitly excluded China and Korea, because Korea was also in the midst of the Korean War. So as a result, Japan have gave up all its claim on all its territory occupied during the war, and the ownership was not formally transferred to China. And then as we know, the Chinese Civil War happened. So when the Nationalist Army was losing all the Chinese coast and including Highland Island, they pull out all their garrisons from around South China Sea and retreated to Taiwan. And then in 1970s is when Philippines first initially put the claim to the South China Sea. So this happened well after the Filipino claim to the South China Sea happened well after the signing of 1951 U.S.-Philippines defense treaty, right? And so this is a new claim, and this has resulted in the dispute between China and the Philippines around the Second Thomas Shaw. So to enforce its claim, when China started to build up bases on these islands in South China Sea, the Philippines decided to enforce its claim by running a World War II era U.S. Navy ship that inherited from United States, the Sierra Madre, by running it aground as Second Thomas Shaw to stick its claim. So in response, China has sent Coast Guard to surround that reef, but the Philippines stuck a dozen Marine on the stranded ship, Sierra Madre, and they will send regular supply ships to supply their Marines. So what China is doing is they send Coast Guard to surround the Shaw to prevent the Filipino supply ship from reaching. But this is more like for a show, because the Filipino Marines are still there. They're still getting resupply. So China recently actually made an offer to the Philippines, and they said, look, let's agree to a deal where we will allow the regular shipment from Filipino supply ship to its Marines stationed on Sierra Madre, the stranded ship on Second Thomas Shaw. But in return, the Philippines agreed not to send in buildings materials. So China don't want the Philippines to build on the island. They're okay to keep the status quo. But this is not what the U.S. has in plan, because U.S. want to use this opportunity to stir up tensions, which would justify the U.S. military's return to the Philippines. Because let's remember that the U.S. military wasn't popular for their bases in the Philippines, because U.S. military bases always brings crime and prostitution. And this is one of the reasons U.S. military got kicked out of the Subic Naval Base and Clark Air Base of the Philippines in the 1990s. Because at that time, the Filipino parliament says, okay, this is a big cost. We are bearing a big burden. If you want to stay, you have to pay more money. And U.S. doesn't want to pay. So they got kicked out. But now U.S. want to come back to confront China, and they need an excuse. And the excuse they need is South China Sea tension. And they got their man in Manila, Mr. Bongbong Marcos, because Bongbong Marcos is the son of Ferdinand Marcos, the former dictator of the Philippines. and Bongbong Marcos is famous for corruption and accrue billions of dollars that he from his corrupt from his corruption during the time he ran the Filipino government. So this billions of dollars are stashed in the offshore account that has been frozen by the U.S. government after Ferdinand Marcos was overthrown. So this is where U.S. government come in and can offer a deal that Bongbong Marcos could not refuse. It's like, okay, you want your money? You want your dad's money? We have access to your dad's money. And so this is where you see the big 180 turns of the Philippines after Duterte presidency, because during Duterte's policy is pivoting away from U.S. toward China and Russia. But after Duterte was because Duterte can only serve 2 terms. And Bongbong Marcos was like, okay, I'm going to uphold your policy. And Bongbong Marcos actually went to China after he became the president. But then U.S. made him a deal he couldn't refuse. So now Philippines is like the cat's paw of the United States to come from China. And they already signed an agreement with Philippines to allow 9 Filipino military bases to be used by the U.S. military. And they are stationed either along South China Sea or in the northern Philippines facing Taiwan. But the thing is, the northmost Filipino province facing Taiwan, the governor has said, I don't want U.S. bases here. Chinese are coming here offering to build us ports. They're offering economic development. You are just offering military bases. I'd rather have economic development and export goods to China. But he was overruled. The regional governor was democratically elected in his region, was overruled because U.S. got to do what he got to do to start trouble in Taiwan. So this is the situation in the Philippines. So now we see all these. We have all these footages shot from the Filipino ships because they got all the journalists from U.S., from the Philippines, and they go there to stir up the tension, and they can capture it, and then they broadcast on CNN and Wall Street Journal and say, look at those aggressive Chinese, look at those aggressive Chinese. Now Tony Blinken said, okay, we offer ironclad commitment to the U.S.-Filipino Mutual Defense Treaty, and it covers South China Sea. Okay, what does that mean? So U.S. have 3 options, right? Right now, what we're talking about is a water cannon fight between the Chinese Coast Guards and the Filipino supply ship, right? We're not talking about military armed attack here. So U.S. have 3 options. U.S. can either A, send the U.S. Coast Guards to send Second Thomas Shaw. So people can Google. There's actually articles in U.S. media talking about how U.S. Coast Guard can play a role containing China in South China Sea. So A, they can send U.S. Coast Guard to engage in water cannon fights against the Chinese Coast Guards. But guess what? The Chinese Coast Guard ships are much, much bigger than anything U.S. Coast Guard have in their stock.
And
so
more
if
power.
if the U.S. Coast Guard is going to go there and engage Chinese Coast Guard in water cannon fights, guess what? They're going to get their ass kicked. So that's option number 1. Option number 2, the U.S. can send its Navy and basically bring a gun to the water fight, right? Like the U.S. can send its Navy and claim this is, somehow they're defending the Philippines. But that means World War III. If the moment the U.S. Navy launch a missile against Chinese Coast Guard, that's an act of war. So, I mean, and we know that could possibly end in nuclear exchange. So that's option number 2, World War III. Option number 3 is to flood the news media with aggressive Chinese behavior in the South China Sea. China is bad. We stand behind Philippines, and then use this opportunity to pivot U.S. military asset to the Philippines to get the access to the Filipino bases, secure the base rights, but actually doing nothing to help the Filipino advance their claim because they're not going to get involved. They're just going to use this opportunity as an excuse for the U.S. military buildup in the Philippines. So guess what? I think the number 3 is the most likely scenario, and I think that's what U.S. is going with. And if, unfortunately, a lot of the more patriotic Filipinos are kind of being led by the nose. They think U.S. is actually helping. U.S. is not going to get in there in that water fight. They're just going to use this opportunity to get back to the Philippines, build up their bases, and that's it as part of their military posture to contain China. How that help Philippines, I don't see that happening. They're not going to get directly involved in a military confrontation that could start World War III. So that's South China. And Taiwan, U.S. is doing very similar. They're sending their special forces, the Green Berets, on the Kinmen Island, which, for people who don't know, Taiwan Island is right here. The Chinese mainland is right here. The Kinmen Island is right here. Kinmen Island is on the other side of the Taiwan Strait, across from Taiwan. It's like 2 kilometers from the main Chinese seaport of Xiamen. And again, a dozen Green Beret. What the hell are they going to do on the Kinmen Islands? They're not actually going to change the facts on the ground, but they are there as a provocation. They're trying to stir up shit in the waters. And China has responded, and especially after the deployment of the Green Berets, the Taiwanese Coast Guard, in its aggressive enforcement of maritime boundaries. They rammed a Chinese fishing vessel, caused it to capsize, and 2 Chinese fishermen to drown. And this led China says, you know what, Taiwan, you know what, I will enforce the maritime laws around the waters in the Kinmen Island. So now the Chinese Coast Guard patrol around the Kinmen Island. And guess what? The Chinese Coast Guard ship is much, much bigger than the Taiwan Coast Guard ship. So Chinese Coast Guard resumed effective control of the waters around Kinmen Islands right now, while the Green Berets are sitting there on the island. They can see all this Chinese Coast Guard ship patrolling around them. So this is a result of the U.S. action. Did it help Taiwan? No, it didn't. Taiwan just lost the control over the waters around Kinmen Island. And this will, again, U.S. This is kind of like Ukraine, because U.S. is just intend to use Taiwan and Filipino as proxies to further U.S. interests. The U.S. is not going to get directly involved. They're just like how they send a military advisor to Ukraine to train Ukraine army. They're there to stir tensions, but they're not going to commit themselves militarily. And so again, it doesn't help Taiwan or the Philippines in terms of advancing their claims or whatever. But it helps U.S. and I mean, it's mind-boggling that people don't see that. This is a U.S. ploy to advance its own interest, but it's not really that much helping in terms of on the Taiwan side, because the military balance is still tipping toward China every day as China grows stronger. We already talked about China's naval build-up capability. China in 1 year built up 7 times the warship was output by U.S. China built 27 warships, while China built 21 warships, while U.S. built 3. And China's shipbuilding capability is 200 times of U.S. at this point. So there's no competition. Like if an actual war actually happens, God forbid, United States is not going to be able to replace those ships that get sunk. Whereas China could roll them off the assembly line in a heartbeat. And so this is on the Taiwan and the South China Sea side. Now on the China-India side, now the China-Indian border dispute have dated from as you mentioned, dated from the British India days. It's a colonial legacy. But what happened is India is a democracy, so that means it's an election issue. The territorial dispute in India is an election issue. Anytime India has an election, suddenly the border tension flares up. and then everybody gets all like upset or emotional about this border dispute with China. But this again, India, unlike Taiwan and Philippines, who are like willing plot proxies, vassal to the United States. India is playing its own game. India's is making its bid for great power status, and so if you figure it could benefit from the geopolitical competition of U.S. and China, on one hand, India is in the BRICS, and it knows that China is trying to woo India to sign on the Belt and Road project. On the other hand, India get access to the latest U.S. military technology and nuclear know-how. The U.S. offered a nuclear cooperation in setting up a nuclear reactors in India, and so India is trying to maximize its advantage,
yes.
right? And so sometimes a little border tension, works in their favor. They're using this opportunity to get more funding from the United States, more international support from the United States. But at the same time, also for domestic reasons, both the ruling party in India and the opposition party are trying to make it an election issue. The opposition is saying, "Oh, the ruling party, why you're not doing enough to resist the Chinese incursion?" And the ruling party, the Modi's party, is like, "Oh, look, we're being tough on China. We go there, show them who's the boss." So this is very convenient. And the U.S. and also India's own military-industrial complex has a vested interest to keep the border tension going, because that means more funding, more bigger military budgets for the Indian army. So the border issue is basically a festering wound in the India-China relations, but there's no political will on the side of the Indian political class to resolve the issue, because it's a very convenient issue to play with, to fine-tune it, to either tune it up or tune it down, depending on what befits their needs at the moment. But the border issue is not going to lead to a full-fledged war, because both sides, India and China, recognize they don't want a war between nuclear powers. So they actually have a decade-old agreement that they will not use firearms in the confrontation. That's why a lot of the confrontation between China and India on the border, you see guys throwing rocks, they're using sticks. they're using literally sticks and stones. And because there's the long-standing agreement not to use firearms, so don't escalate into a bigger war. So the actual prospect for war between China and India is actually not that great, because both sides Indian side want to keep the tension simmering, just so the Indian army get more military budget, Indian politicians get more talk points, they get more goodie from the United States, but they actually don't want to commit themselves to a full scale. So we're gonna see like this rim of tensions around China's periphery from Taiwan, Philippines, and India. But the prospect of actual war, I don't see it as great. But the tensions benefits U.S. It benefits India, so they're gonna keep stoking the tensions. This is my take.
Fun fact: first of all, everybody hit the like button on Rumble, Odyssey, I guess Twitter, and YouTube. Please hit the like button. Here's a fun fact as we move and go more into the geopolitics of things. Did most of you know that India was once part of Ethiopia? India was a part of Ethiopia, and do you know that the Ganges River was named after the Ethiopian king? The holy and sacred in Hindu, the Ganges is the sacred river for the Hindus, and that was named after the Ethiopian emperor that ruled. His kingdom spanned from what is known as Ethiopia today to India. You know that. I like to drop little historical facts every now and then to let the people know. So now let's look at this because I want to stay on Asia for a minute, due to the fact that the United States was talking about that she is definitely trying to morphed the Five Eyes and the AUKUS into a Asian NATO. Remember all of the denials that were taking place for the last few years that America was not trying to build a Asian NATO, and just recently they let the cat out of the bag and said yes, they're trying to confront a belligerent and aggressive rising China. What say you on that matter?
Now, Rashid, see, this is interesting. Why do they need AUKUS when they already have Quad, right? The Quad is supposed to be an alliance of democracies to hold back China. We have Japan, we have US, we have Australia, and we have India. But US felt somehow Quad is maybe not dependable. They need AUKUS because AUKUS brings US, Australia, and UK. Why is UK involved in Asia? You know, we're 21st century. UK doesn't own Hong Kong anymore. What the hell is UK doing in Asia? But anyway, AUKUS is basically US is saying, okay, I'm gonna have to fall back on my Anglo brothers. I'm gonna have to fall back on my Five Eye alliance to confront China, because maybe the Indians and the Japanese, they can't be relied on too much. You know, this is like the AUKUS is like the last great white hope. The great white hope to keep those Asians in check, and you know, and Australia, because they have Australia is a weird case because their largest customer is in China, their biggest export is in China, and they want to pick a fight with China, but because U.S. is able to play on like the inherent Australian racist fear of like the Asian hordes coming from north and taking over, because Australia, New Zealand, there's these white colonies sitting on the edge of Asia, you know, especially with just to the north of Australia, there's Indonesia, the fourth largest population in the world, like over 270 million people, where Australia only has what's the population size of Australia? 9 million?
A few million.
It's a few million. And so they always fear this great Asian horde is going to come down over and take over. You know, that's why they had the racist white Australian policy from back in the days that was only repealed in the 1950s. But they in their head they still fear of these Asians going to come for their land. But UK, man, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, what the hell? They still think they're still the empire. They still think that Britannia rule the waves. Are you kidding me? Your aircraft carriers, you know, they had two aircraft carriers, HMS Elizabeth and the Prince of Wales. They had to cannibalize Prince of Wales to keep Queen Elizabeth afloat. And after that, the Queen Elizabeth still have to go in for repairs, and while it's in ports for repair, it catch fire. I mean, this is a state of UK Navy. You think you want to confront China with that? So I mean, I think right now the best bet of the US, like I said, that you know they're gonna use a choke point of Strait of Malacca to block all the energy imports of China. And I think the best bet right now is for US, UK, Australia to sink all their naval ship in the Strait of Malacca. That's the best chance of blocking the Strait of Malacca to the Chinese shipping traffic.
And you know, that's the reason we see a lot of terrorist attack. And you mentioned something earlier about the terror attack that just took place in Pakistan. And remember, a year or so ago, in the same region, a terror attack took place, and some of the intelligence services were saying that was orchestrated by the U.S. and RAW to prevent China from what is trying to build to go along with the Belt and Road Initiative, so that because it wants to invest over $60 billion in Pakistan to make this thing viable and use the ports so that they wouldn't be so reliant on waterways. And now we have another terrorist attack that took the lives of a few Chinese and a few Pakistanis. Do you think that Indian Raw is playing is playing this double game that may get it caught up and left behind? And hold up. And before you say it, Indian Raw, for those who are listening, Indian Raw is the intelligence service, similar to the CIA and the MI6.
So look, the attack happened near a hydroelectric plant, right? Why would anybody attack engineer trying to build a hydroelectric plant, right? China is investing a lot of money in Pakistan to make Pakistan, because the Pakistan has chronicle problem, because it's basically an economic problem. They're diverting too much resources into beef up the Pakistani military, and the Pakistani economy is kind of getting neglected. And China is injecting a lifeline into Pakistan to build up its infrastructure, because China has an interest to have stability in its neighborhood, and Pakistan is a traditional ally. And as you mentioned, China is trying to build a corridor from Xinjiang region of China through Pakistan to the port of Gwadar, which is very close to the Arabian it sits on the Arabian Gulf, but it's but it's very close to the Persian Gulf. It's sitting very close to the mouth of the Persian Gulf, near the Strait of Hormuz. So that way, in the future, possibly, if China builds a pipeline, the oil tankers can go straight from the Gulf countries, directly unload in Port of Gwadar, and the oil gets piped overland from Pakistan to China. And that avoids a whole travel through the Strait of Malacca, where the U.S. Navy has been wet dreaming about blocking. And this is so why would somebody attack engineers build a hydroelectric plant? It obviously is people who don't want to see development in Pakistan. Now there's two primary suspects, right? Two U.S. suspects, either U.S. or India. And the people who are attacking Chinese engineers are either Baluchistan Liberation Army or ISIS-K, or the so-called Pakistani Taliban. Now the two sides, these terrorist groups have ties with both the U.S. and the Indian intelligence service, RAW. So I mean, it could be either. It could be either India or U.S., but India is known to be involved in supporting the Balochistan independence movement in Pakistan, because India wants to partition Pakistan to weaken its rival. This is a kind of very dangerous escalation, because India itself is a multi-ethnic state with many religions, many languages, and many features among different communities. And China, during Mao's time, China used to support Maoist guerrillas in India, used to support the Indian communists, and also the people in northeast India that were seeking independence from India. Now, when Deng Xiaoping came to power, Deng Xiaoping has cut off the support, because Deng Xiaoping says China no longer export revolution. Now, this provide a certain degree of stability in the India-China relationship. Basically say, I'm not going to support your terrorist group. You're not going to support mine. Let's have like civilized relationship as neighbors. But if India is involved in attacking Pakistan against Chinese interests, what's holding China back from supporting separatists in India?
Mm-hmm.
This could lead a serious escalation and destabilization in India itself. So I mean, I don't think if the RA is involved, I don't think the people in the Indian intelligence service are thinking this through in long term. They're maybe more focused on their immediate goal, which is to destabilize Pakistan. But sometimes you got to take a step back and look at the big picture. It's like, okay, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you do this, what's stopping China to say, okay, you know what? All these people want to succeed from India. All these people are trying to seek independence from India. From Kashmir all the way to northeast India. We're going to start giving them funding now. That's going to create a lot of problem for India. So I hope I mean, so far China has been acting responsibly in not pursuing that approach, but it's an option that could that could be pursued if this series of attack against Chinese interests continue in Pakistan. Um, but I'm also not excluding U.S. involvement, because U.S. also has an interest to seeing China not gaining too much influence in Pakistan, because as I said, the whole idea of the corridor through Pakistan is so China is not so reliant on the oil route through Strait of Malacca that U.S. Navy always wanted to block. So this could be a CIA thing. It could be an Indian thing. It could be a collaboration effort, for all we know. But it's not good for the stability of the region, because but it's I mean, yeah, it's but despite this, like I said, in the end of the day, the terrorist attack is not going to change the geopolitical balance on the ground. Just like the terrorist attack in Moscow is not going to change the fact in the Ukrainian battlefield. The terrorist attack against Chinese led project in Pakistan is not going to stop the Chinese investment. It's not going to stop the Chinese engineers from coming. It's not going to stop China trying to continue to build up Pakistan. So what they will do is they will cause a lot of pain for the victims and their families, but in the end of the day, they're not going to change the course of history.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know time is of the essence, but I want to ask a few more questions. And next time we'll talk on the Palestinian thing, but I want to stay in Asia for a second. But before we do that, we have 138 people, according to YouTube and my dashboard, 138 people watching. Please smash the like button, please. It doesn't cost you a thing, or the dislike button. Either one. Just do something.
But you can hate watch us and then leave your comments, your criticism in the comments. That helps the YouTube algorithm. Thank you.
That's right. So Carl, it seems to me, and I don't know if everybody who is viewing this is seeing it like this, but it seems like America, when dealing with China, she was like power walking, and now it's picked up to a brisk short run, and it's picking up pace to a full sprint against China out of Myanmar, out of Thailand, out of Indonesia, out of the Philippines, using Japan. I mean, it seems like, and then destabilizing Pakistan, and then trying to make her way down through Central Asia and to the belly of Russia and China. What is your thoughts on these matters, and how do you think China will react or rebuff these moves? Because it's turning into a full run now.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. is desperate, because year after year, despite their U.S. media talking about collapse of China imminent, China continued to grow. China continued to get more powerful and more stronger. And even U.S. knows the time is on China's side. So they allow China to continually grow. There will be a point where there's not much U.S. can do to stop the rise of China. Well, they can't do too much even right now. So they're really scrambling. They're trying to, roll back China's progress, and this is why you hear talks about, China invading Taiwan in 2027. It's like they just pulled this number out of their butt because they know. They know the time for U.S. to stop China's rise, this window is diminishing. By after 2027, there's not too much hope, because they're kind of rushing against time to do something to stop the rise of China. This is where China is playing. Be the rational guys, like, hey guys, come down. We're not, let's not doing anything rash here, because China knows as long as there's peace and stability, China will continue to grow stronger. This is this ironic fact that the conventional wisdom is that the rising power, in order to challenge the status quo power, they're the one who are trying to offset the balance by stirring shit up. But in fact, China is a status quo power right now, because as long as there's peace and stability, China will continue to get stronger and more powerful. And so it's the U.S. that's trying to change the status quo, and by creating tensions. But again, there's not too many good options. Like Tucker Carlson said, there's not too many options for U.S. to confront the problem of China, short of starting World War III. I mean, World War III, then it's game over for everybody. It's it's game over for everybody if it goes to a nuclear exchange. But if it doesn't go, if U.S. does not go nuclear, then U.S. is going to get its ass kicked, because the U.S. doesn't have the industrial capacity, and so U.S. doesn't have good options. It will keep on. That's why you keep on doing all these like Mickey Mouse CIA destabilization scheme all around China. But at the end of the day, terrorism is not going to stop the progress of history. They're not. They never have. It's not. Unless they want to start a war. Like there's one case that the terrorism changed the course of history. That was the World War One. Right? I mean, if that's the way, I said it's World War III, it's game over for a lot of people. So I don't know if U.S. is prepared for that. I mean, I'm sure there's some wackos in the U.S. State Defense Department want that to happen, but I just hope before that happens, those wackos get thrown out of office.
So we'll address one last question, one last statement in the chat, and I'll address it first, then I'll let you cook after that on this statement. Just Me puts up in here. He says, one thing is for sure, China socially is a mess. Now this is the part I'm going to address right here. First, Just Me, I don't think you're informed on this matter. I want you to understand, in the last 15 years, China has done something that even the United Nations says that has never been done in the history of the world. They have removed 850 million, not 800,000, not 8 million, not 80 million, 850 million Chinese from poverty to middle class. And let me show you how breathtaking that is. That is the entirety of the population of Europe and America, almost. They removed them from poverty and moved them to the middle class. That is unprecedented. So, Carl, I just had to say that before you chime in. Do your thing, man. Cook before we go off.
For me, I don't know if this person is American, but it sounds so American to me, because sports is everything to the Americans. Right? So they could not possibly picture that there might be a civilizations where they don't give a shit about sports. I mean, for China, maybe that China had priorities like lifting 800 million people out of poverty, building world-class infrastructure, building high-speed rail, and connecting the world through Belt and Road Initiative, then worry about whether they have a world-class soccer team or not, right? So you have the biggest population on the planet, yet you need to recruit foreigners for your support team. Yeah, let the foreigners play football. It's okay. It's okay. Chinese fans are okay with paying foreigners to play football on their team while their children continue to attend top ranked universities and be engineers and produce the next greatest AI goods and create robots and create the AI future that we all and create like abundant energy. And to make everything, it's a win-win solution. The people who like to play football, let them play football. The people who want to be engineers, let them be engineers. I mean, why not? Like, spread the wealth around. Let the foreigners play football. It's okay. What's wrong with that? And also, like, I mean, isn't it good to have all the people of different cultures to come together, interact. You have Stefan Marbury. He was washed up in US, but when he found his second win in China, he's like well liked, and he's like a hero. He's a sports hero in China right now because when he went to play for Beijing, and now he's a coach over there. People love him. He after his retirement, he's still in Beijing. Now he just posts like short videos on Chinese TikTok, and what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Chinese people love him for it. So I'm okay. I'm okay with China paying foreigners to play on the sports team. I have no problem with that. As long as China continue to progress technologically, to get more wealthy, the Chinese people get more more prosperity. I'm perfectly fine with foreigners playing on the Chinese sports team. No complaint from me.
Well, we're going to end it here, but Carl, on the next live that you and I do together, I want to bring in my guy from Real Truth Talk, because he really wants to talk to you and ask you a few questions. I think he's still on vacation. He told me that he would hit me up when he gets off vacation. So when he gets off vacation, maybe we can set that up. But you and I will keep chopping it up, man. Thank you so much, my brother and my friend. Be safe, man. Take care of that family. So everybody, check this out. We had my guy, my friend Carl on here. I mean, kick butt every time. And what was crazy about this, I got to say this. My daughter, my 5-year-old daughter, she comes into the room right before the show. This is no lie. She comes into the room and she says, yeah, Dad, your show comes on shortly. And guess who? We got Carl Zha coming on the show. And I'm like in tears laughing because she said that, right? She said, yeah, we love it. We're going to turn the TV in the den and we're going to watch Carl Zha and you chop it up. She's very advanced. She's very smart. And I was just laughing. But I want you to know, Friday we'll have Turkish journalist, historian, and geopolitical analyst Tariq Amar on, and we'll have in the coming days Professor Glenn Deason back on the platform from the Duran. He'll be on the show. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. I mean, without you, without God, this cannot be done. We're going to keep giving you the truth, keep supporting the channel, do whatever you can to support the channel. As always, I go out the same way that I come in, with love in my heart for you. But let me say this before we go out. We're going to try to do a live for the Patreon tomorrow. And remember to look for the channel member stream, I think Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go out with love in my heart, as I always come in with love in my heart for each and every one of you who love truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that the divine supreme being, Almighty God, has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but always stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. I'm out of here. Peace.